Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of our podcast Getting to Better Together, which is sponsored by the Centre for International Development, Social Entrepreneurship and Leadership at the University of the Sunshine Coast and supported by Noosa Radio FM 101.3. I'm your host, Richard Bawden. Before proceeding further, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gubbi Gubbi people, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. As regular subscribers to this series will know well, the central theme of our podcast of Getting to Better Together is that it is only through collaboration that we will be able to deal successfully with the pressing issues of the day. In our roughly 36 episodes to date, with but a few notable exceptions, however, our focus has been on big picture aspects of these issues. Our interviews have explored matters such as the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change and sustainable development from global and national perspectives. The together factor at this level has tended to be non-inclusive of participation, certainly at the level of individual citizens or even of local communities. And in this episode we want to change that by focusing our talk on our own back door, as it were. It's increasingly apparent to us all that leaving it to others to fix is not working. It's clear that we cannot rely alone on actions for desirable change by national governments, international organisations like the UN, educational institutions, or, heaven forbid, transnational corporations. Specifically, we'll be talking today about the role and significance of local government in helping to deal with the most serious matters. We want to discuss how local government councils, and Noosa in particular, are translating these global issues into local communal actions, focusing on the Glocal, as it were, and helping us to learn how to work together for the greater good of our natural environment, as well as of our own communities and individuals within them. To engage with these challenges today, it's my great pleasure to welcome the Mayor of Noosa Council, Clare Stewart. Welcome, Clare.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Thank you.
Thank you for having me on the show. Looking forward to having a chat.
And I welcome you. Clare will be no stranger to our local audience, of course, but for those further afield, I should mention that she holds degrees in business as well as in law, including a Master of Laws, and was a barrister before her marriage. She's a public speaker, a nationally accredited mediator, and the author of an extraordinarily poignant autobiography, Standing on My Own 2 Feet. Let me start by asking you, how is Noosa Council engaging with the members of its communities in issues that might seem all too overwhelming and beyond their immediate control, or at least any issue for that matter?
Councils are, and we see this across the board, councils are going through increasingly unprecedented pressures and changes. COVID, global pandemics. This year we've faced 2 floods. So, all councils are facing their fair share of obstacles. And community expectation is high, as it should be. We're a service provider. And our ability to generate income and deliver projects, we have found certainly over the last 12, 18 months, 2 years with COVID, not only had we had COVID and the lockdowns, we've now seen across the board, incredible rates of inflation. We've seen difficulties for businesses to get staff. We've seen increasing prices on infrastructure projects because of the rising costs of so many different areas across the field, from steel to gravel to whatever you name it. Inflation has hit. So we have a rate base, and it's not growing exponentially, and nor should it. But we certainly have that responsibility to deliver services to our community and also to deliver projects. And I think last year was our absolute record at $42 million in a capital infrastructure program for the year, and this year we're at 38. And that's an incredibly ambitious high task. We'll reach it, and we've got a wonderful team who will deliver it. But, we are seeing costs increase, but we are really focused on grassroots spending for our community, bang for your buck. So roads, reseal programs, community assets, all those things we're very focused on delivering. And we deliver over 100, the council delivers over 150 services every day. So, on top of all the capital infrastructure, we still have those services we deliver every day.
Can you give us some examples of those?
Oh, sure. I mean, the library, the Noosa Aquatic Centre, the J, I mean, they're just three community assets. We have under our community development program, a living well program. We have, a huge amount of sports programs. Just next week, I'm a mum with 3 kids. Noosa Council Come and Try Sports Day, where Noosa Council puts on a sports afternoon for all the children across the Shire to come and have a go at a sport they may like. So all these things are happening every day. Then we've got, the support, and when we support organisations such as Meals on Wheels or Salvation Army, we host a roundtable with all our sort of care providers in that space and our not-for-profits. That's just a really slight example, but it is very, very broad. We have a huge amount of services and what we're responsible. And then obviously there's the roads, rates and rubbish, the standard. But there's so much more. I was just last week having lunch, working lunch, and I ran into Sip and Connect, which was a group of sort of retirees who Noosa Council have a program where they take them out every week or two and they get them together, and it's just a great social activity. Well, that's something that's part of our our Living Well program and across, and that's just one example of something that we provide.
With that as an agenda, and it's certainly not slight, I would have to say, it seems huge to me. How does one sort of change gear to start talking about the bigger issues? I mean, it's all very well to talk about local flooding and fire, and of course they are incredibly important, and they are the purview of a local council. But there are these huge issues now, aren't there? I mean, climate change and COVID is an example of a pandemic, not just COVID per se, but these are the sorts of things we're going to face more and more. In an area, for those not familiar with Noosa, which has relied historically on tourism.
Yes, look, it has, and look, but the health sector and is a big part of our economy as well. But you're right, we have relied so heavily on tourism, and during COVID, I think at the height of COVID, we had lost 1,200 jobs just on Hastings Street alone, and we had 4,500 on JobKeeper. So we have really been impacted by COVID, but Noosa is an incredibly strong brand. It's a very well-known brand, and we bounced back quickly. And we had this great stat that the businesses that I think 70% or more, or 75, 80% of our businesses had a downturn in revenue, but 80-something% stayed open. So it just showed how resilient our businesses were. And we have over 7,000 small businesses in Noosa Shire, and the majority of those are run by less than 4 people. So we've got a lot of small businesses, and they are the backbone, very much the backbone of our community. So it has been, the last sort of couple of years, the floods have affected it, the COVID, the lockdowns. We've had a lot of interruptions, but we're a resilient bunch up here in Noosa.
And are there signs of recovery now, significant recovery?
Look, there is, but there is signs of absolutely recovery. But to put it in context, in the 2019 bushfires, I think the last of the recovery efforts have just been completed. So that shows the length of time. Now we had in our floods back in February a major landslip, probably the most significant on the Sunshine Coast, $20 to $30 million in recovery costs it will be, and it will be a couple of years in the process of fixing. So, these things, these natural disasters are just that. They're disasters, and they take time, and we don't plan for them, but they have a huge impact on our community, on our residents, who have been displaced, but also on our service delivery, because we have a $38 million capital works program that our staff are required to deliver. But on top of that, we also have, the recovery. And I think we had over 500 operational works were lodged for the recovery on top of that business as usual work. So it's a big strain on a small council. But our staff do an amazing job and are the best in the business, I think.
I've only lived in the area for 4 years, and I've noticed a sort of extraordinary tension here that perhaps one doesn't notice in too many other places. And that's between keeping these beautiful parks all around us, the national parks, and the tensions of extraordinary demands for new housing. Is this a major issue for council, or is it?
Look, it is. Well, what is a major issue for council is and we're not alone. It's an issue for all other councils across Queensland and Australia. We're hearing it every day. We're in the middle of a housing crisis, a housing shortage. So, yeah, we absolutely have a shortage of affordable social and worker accommodation. But, what keeps Noosa so beautiful and why everyone wants to live here is because we value our natural environment so greatly. So that's so important to us. So we actually have a draft housing strategy out for consultation at the moment. And look, we're not looking at, taking any, environmentally sensitive land where, that's all being kept and protected as it should be. But we're looking at areas where we might look at car parks or assets that are already, that the land is degenerated. It's not good land. It's not environmentally sensitive land. Lazy assets, planning scheme amendments, rooming accommodation. Looking at looking at a whole range of things that form part of this strategy. But the most important thing is maintaining and protecting our natural environment, because that's why we're all here.
In terms of getting the message out to the communities, how do you approach that? If you have these growing issues, how do people in the community understand the sorts of pressures that you as mayor and the rest of the council are under?
Look, I think you have to take the community on a journey. I think they have to be fully informed.
That's a good phrase. I like that.
Yeah, I think at every step of the way out, and I do, we're doing a lot of communications. The draft strategy, number one, is to get the feedback first, and we've had a great response to the feedback. But once that's back, it will be taking the community with us on the journey so they're fully informed, because that's when the rumours start, or the fear mongering of, they're going to do this or they're going to do that, which is not true at all. But if we inform the community, and that's our job, and we take them on the journey, and again that's our job, then I think the community will be 100% behind us, because at the end of the day, this is a really caring community, and they care about their people and each other, and that will shine through.
Hey, journey is a great metaphor, I think.
Yes, take the community on the journey. I think it's a really important way to phrase it.
Well, particularly given that circumstances as they occur illustrate that we're not quite sure the destination.
Yeah, that's right.
The journey's much more difficult to stay on the journey rather than knowing exactly where we want to get to. It's just the journey becomes incredibly important, doesn't it?
It does. Absolutely. We all, at the end of the day, I think everyone wants the same outcome. We all want what we all, but it's just on how to get there. And that's where the journey comes in.
Right. Let me ask you a personal question. What drew you into local government?
I'd always been interested in politics. And as you very kindly gave me that introduction, I had a background in law, and I had 3 small children, and I did think about running for pre-selection for the state seat of Noosa, for the LNP. It's no secret I'm a member of the LNP, but I decided that I spoke to a lot of people. I talked to my family, my husband, my parents, who are very supportive. They live just down the road. And I decided that, the best way to make a contribution, to be involved and to be able to be home every night, because my children were at that time, and they're still small. I think my youngest was 3 at the time, was to be in local government. So that it just made sense. And, during the campaign, I felt that win or lose, by the end of the campaign, I had won, because I was closer to the community. I knew more about community issues. I knew what the community wanted. I knew what drove the community. And I had met some really wonderful people who are still close friends. So, I really did feel like at the end of it, I had won either way.
Was there any big surprise? Was there anything that you hadn't anticipated whatsoever that hit you, good or bad?
During the campaign, or since becoming mayor?
Since becoming mayor.
I think a couple of things. I think the breadth of what council does. We do so much. One day we're talking about coastal hazards adaptation plan. We're talking about affordable housing. We're talking about roads. We're talking about reseal programs. We've got issues with the hinterland, which are different issues to issues that are along our eastern beaches. We're talking about, foreshore management plans. So, We're talking about a waste strategy. So the breadth, I think, of what a local council does, and it is mind-boggling when you're in here. But I think also the support. So we have a huge amount of staff, I think around 450 staff, and, a great CEO, great executive team, great managers, right down everyone I've met in the organisation, and I go out to the depots a lot and speak to our parks and gardens workers, and they all do such a great job. So I think the support is there. So I think it's a very supported role, but there's a lot of breadth and depth to the role.
I would find it overwhelming, quite personally. I think it's quite extraordinary. In terms of special interest groups, is lobbying a big thing in local councils?
Well, actually, if you are a lobbyist, we actually have to fill out a form. So if you are actually on a registered if you're registered as a lobbyist, when you come in, we have to fill out a form and say, we've met with you, the time. So it's pretty strict. So I wouldn't say lobby groups. I'd say there's a whole lot of groups. I think we have over 300 community groups in Noosa Shire. We have business associations, we have environmental groups, we have chambers of commerce. So we meet with all of them, or, the door's always open to meet with them, that's for sure. So, I think that I wouldn't say lobby. I would say we have a lot of interest groups.
Yeah, so that's a better way of putting it. Quite, that's right.
Yeah.
We said that there's with a long journey without necessarily knowing exactly what the destination is, but you must have a vision. What would your vision be of Noosa in 20 years' time?
I think 2032 provides an unprecedented opportunity for Southeast Queensland, and Noosa now sits. I advocated very strongly for us to be part of the Council of Mayors, Southeast Queensland Council of Mayors. So, and I always said, and I say it again, to have a voice, we've got to be at the table. So we're now sitting at the table. So I think that what we will see with Southeast Queensland and the opportunities to enhance our training facilities, our sporting facilities, make us a more accessive and inclusive, Shire accessibility and inclusivity. I think these things, look at infrastructure, look at those legacy projects that we want, not just for 32, but for 42 and for 52, and where we want to see our community, what benefits we want to see from that. I think that's a huge opportunity. I think it's one that now we have the ability to take, and I was very privileged to be voted in by my Council of Mayors to sit on the Brisbane Organising Committee of the Olympic Games, along with Lord Mayor Schrinner as the representatives for the Council of Mayors. So look, that again poses an opportunity. So that's a big one. But look, we need to always remember why Noosa is special, and we go by the catch cry, different by nature. So it's very much about protecting and enhancing the environment that we have, that we all love so dearly, but it's also supporting our businesses, supporting our workers, our at most at risk, our vulnerable, ensuring that everyone, it's a fundamental human right to have a place to live and a place to feel safe. So that's certainly very much a part of my thought train. I don't believe that supporting the environment, protecting the environment, and supporting our business community and supporting our workers are mutually exclusive. I think we can do both. I think we can do it all. Absolutely. And I think we can do it all. It's just a matter of how we do it. We need to do it smart, and we need to do it with consultation with our residents.
No. They have to be mutually inclusive, don't they? One of the things that we've talked a fair bit about, because it's a personal interest of mine, is how people learn to deal with complexity. There's a tendency all the time to sort of simplify complexity rather than work through it and then find solutions is the wrong word, but ways forward after we've gone through the complexity. Do you get a sense that the council has a handle on complexity? Absolutely.
Look, we have we've got sort of 5 different areas, and every area has a specialty. So environment, sustainable, we've got the planning, we've got corporate services, we've got capital infrastructure, we've got governance, we've got the whole kit and caboodle, and then we've got a communities department, and each of those are headed by a director, which sits under the umbrella of our CEO. And under that, there's managers and line managers, and so everyone is, even though, there's a huge range of services and that we provide, and infrastructure and capital projects we deliver, everyone very much has their role. So I do think that that we are certainly across it all, and I think we handle it really well. I think our staff should be highly commended.
One of the things that I've found as a newcomer relative to the area with grandchildren is the remarkable facility of sports. There are playgrounds, sports grounds. It's quite extraordinary compared to many other places that I've lived and worked in, literally across the world.
Yes, look with the regen complex at Tawantin, which I'm certainly advocating strongly for. That is an opportunity to have a fully inclusive sports. I don't like to say the word sports because it's everything. It's mental health. It's 9 different sports clubs. It's 9, potentially 3,000, members of sporting clubs using it. It's just a great community asset, so these community assets we have, and that's one there, and we've got, across the Shire, they're really good. I mean, but we can always, and the Noosa Aquatic Centre, I think it's one of the best aquatic centres around. It's a wonderful community asset, as is the the Bicentennial Hall, all those places, the leisure centre, it's always being used. Whenever you go there, the community are using it. Our libraries are fantastic. So I think, yes, sport, we can do more in this space, and that's certainly a passion of mine. But I think what we've got, I think we do really well for a small council with limited resources. And when I say resources, rates, obviously. We're not a large council. We don't have a lot of, we have very, if any, greenfield space. So we've got a bit, but certainly not, we're not looking to broaden and expand like other areas can across Queensland, because we are capped. So I think we do really well with what we have.
One of the other interesting things that one notices when you come up here is that sort of different groups of people. So we have the tourists, we have long-term residents, and then we have visiting residents, as it were. That I find it's an interesting mix. And how does a council deal with that sort of differences in? I'm trying to think of the word. Demography is the word I'm trying to think of. The demographics of Noosa are really quite interesting.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And we have, you're exactly right. And that's why we've actually just, forming the destination management plan, which looks at sustainable tourism. How can we actually provide really tourism that's really, wanted by people who are coming here and who see it of value, but also that it doesn't impact upon our residents. So more tourists means more cars, it means more congestion, more people in the town. So how do we combat all that, but still welcome and encourage our tourists, but at the same time ensure that our residents aren't losing amenity? And that's why we're forming up the destination management plan, and we're forming a project control group with a whole range of people to address that issue, stakeholders, industry experts, and we're calling for the people in our community, 3 of them with the relative knowledge and expertise, to be on that, because that's exactly right, and that's exactly what the destination management plan is all about, and we're looking at that and we're working towards that.
Just an evocative, if not provocative question. What role should universities be playing in all of this?
Look, I think data and figures and facts are key. So I would love to get any data from universities. This is the the demographics. This is what's happening here in October and November. This is how many people came here, and this is why, and this is how long they're staying, and this is how much they're spending, and all those kinds of things. This is the research from your residents saying that 20% think this, 40% think that. So that's, I actually think, the research component of things like the destination management plan will be critical, because data doesn't lie, and it's so important to have accurate data.
Yes. It's a pity that more people don't quite understand that notion.
I think it's important.
Isn't it? Without evidence, it's all just folklore. Yeah, this has been delightful. Thank you so much for taking time and talking with us.
My pleasure.
I admire what you all do in local government. It's just quite extraordinary. And as you've been talking, this whole image of complexity is built up in my mind. And I love the metaphor of the journey, and I wish you well on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And thank you all for listening, and I look forward to our next episode. Thank you and goodbye.